Blueberry season starts here for me in about 2 weeks, and I'm going to be in a lot of trouble if I don't get some room in my freezer. So today we're going to start canning up a whole bunch of stuff that I've identified for my inventory so that I can freeze 42 pounds of blueberries. Hello everybody and welcome to Sutton's Days. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. We are all about pantry preparedness, and today I am going to be canning some pork butt. We're going to talk about the pros, the cons, the ins, the outs, all of the technical stuff, and we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. Let's get started. We have my last sale pork butt from last year, 13 pounds roughly. So I'm hoping to get a canner load plus out of it. I might carve some of it into some country ribs because we like those too, but for the most part it's going to go in jars. This is, in my opinion, one of the really good proteins to do. So for my folks that don't like ugly chicken, raw packed chicken breast, it is mainly because they consider it to be dry. That is largely because it is a very lean meat. Pork butt is not a very lean meat. I have a towel underneath my cutting board because, there's going to be juice. Yeah, so most of the time when you get a pork butt or a pork shoulder, they're also called, they will cut it in half. But the thing is both pieces are in one package. Using all my words here today. Yes, I am. And it has a bone in it. So they have a bone in it, and you have to be aware that you are paying for part of the bone, okay? But that's all fine and dandy because it's a really great meat. It has amazing marbling, obviously, right? Pigs are fatty little buggers. So it's moist. When you can it up, it stays moist, which is very, very nice. And probably one of the biggest complaints I get about canning boneless, skinless chicken breast. If you want to do pork loin, it is less fatty. It's like the chicken breast. It's lean. And so it has the potential, if you are sensitive to the dry chicken, the chicken breast, then if you're sensitive to that, then you will want to stick with the pork butt for canning purposes. I have 1.5 pint jars because that's what I'm going to be putting them in. Literally the only place that I know of right now to get 1.5 pint jars is Azure Standard. I have a link down below where you can see if they have a drop somewhere near you. I am going to be doing those. So if you're canning pints, it's for 75 minutes. If you're canning quarts, it's for 90 minutes. If you're canning 1.5 pints, you do it for the same time as quarts, which is 90 minutes. And that's what we're doing. So we're going to start carving this up. And part of the challenge is it always has this fat cap on the bottom. You don't want to can this. Now, I always say the fat is where the flavor is, so you don't have to go crazy with, taking it all off. But this really is just too much to can and has a higher chance of going rancid as a result. So we want to remove that. But we will be saving it and rendering it down into lard because that's a great thing to do, and that way none of it goes to waste. The key here is to use absolutely everything that you possibly can, okay? And that piece is good. Okay, so I mean that's a pretty sizable hunk of fat, and we will be turning that into lard because lard is good. Well, it's good for cooking, and it's good for baking, and all of that stuff. And you can make soap with it. Yes, you can. It doesn't have to be tallow. You can use pig fat rendered into lard to make soap. So this is probably the most fat that I'm going to get off of this particular one. And we're going to start carving into that because it's easier to do one than the other. You want to locate the bone, be aware of it. And you are likely not going to get everything off the bone because it's just kind of awkwardly shaped and difficult to traverse around. This was frozen. I defrosted it, and now we're going to can it. So You want to cut this up the same as you do as chicken. No, I will not put that whole piece in there because it just doesn't make sense, okay? It might be a little bit more work, but if you cut it into smaller pieces, that ensures that the heat can get around the meat. It can get into the center of the meat, which makes sure that it's getting to the necessary temperature that was tested, and it is safe to eat once you can it. And that's why we do this, right? Because we want to be able to eat it. There is so much that you can do with pork, especially canned pork. Now, regardless, I had somebody ask the other day if they could can country ribs. I mean, yeah, obviously you can, but what are your expectations for it as it's coming out? Because when you go to pull that out of the jar, it's going to shred up, just like ugly pork does. Even if you were to par cook this for the hot pack method, and that's what you have to do. You don't cook it all the way through, you par cook it. And when you pull it out of the jar, it may stay in its cubed shape a little bit more, but it's still going to shred super, super easy. So to me, it's kind of a waste of country ribs, especially if you're paying for country ribs instead of creating them yourself, because that ain't cheap, because most of what you're paying for is the bone. Okay, so just like that, what was around the bone, for the most part, is gone. And I'm going to end up using this to create a stock. Super simple, so I'm going to put that in there. Okay, now we've got this other half, and this is just, I mean, that is fantastic marbling, so it's going to can up fantastic. Just like raw packing chicken, you want to make sure that you're starting off with a good product. It can come from frozen. If you froze it at some point, all you have to do is defrost it. You cannot cut it up frozen and put it in the jars and can it, because then it's coming from a different temperature than if it was, you know, thawed, if it was defrosted. So that's not the way to go. But I do understand that it is easier sometimes to cut up chunks of meat like this when they are partially frozen. It really is. And especially with pork butt, because it's so slippery, because it's so fatty. But look at that. Oh, see, that's just going to be fantastic in a jar. What are the different things that you can do with pork butt? So much. Not only do I have a recipe collection in my Etsy store, link is in below in the description box, but there's all kinds of other things. You can substitute beef, you can substitute chicken in just about all your recipes with pork. And when you're getting it for 99 cents a pound, it is very, very economical to have on your shelf and in your freezers. This is just a great meat. They called it, do you remember that ad campaign? Well, it was when I was younger. You know, the other white meat, because apparently it was better for you than, you know, beef and all this other stuff. Meat is meat as far as I'm concerned. Yes, some of it is leaner. Some of it is, you know, less calories. But meat is meat. And a good protein cooked up in a good recipe makes for a beautiful meal. I use this for stuffed peppers. I use this for, what is it called? It is a egg roll in a bowl. Oh, yes, I just love egg roll in a bowl. And this is perfect for it. You can use it when you pull it out of the jar, just heat it up with some taco seasoning. And you're going to want to, because there is fat in this, okay? And so you are going to want to heat it up, because you will notice when it cools off, and I'll show you this, you'll notice when it cools off that it forms kind of like a fat cap at the top. So you're going to want to heat it up and cook off some of that fat. But that is the perfect time to add any of your seasonings for whatever you're going to use it for. I am not big on adding seasoning into the jar. You are literally saving no time at all. There's a bone on this side too, so we're going around that. Oh, I should have cut the fat cap first. Let's do it now instead. I'm too busy talking. Okay. Maybe I'll use this one to make soap. That would be good. From this pork butt. And so by doing that. 99 cents a pound. You do have some bone in there, but it's not huge. And if you do it right, you can literally have multiple dinners and a bar of soap for a shower afterwards. It's fantastic. Okay, and you are going to pull some meat off with the fat. Not a problem. When you render it down, you just pull it out of the fat. I mean, you'd have to be a pro to get that sliver of meat off of there, but now that's gone. So the one downside is that you are paying for the fat, which if you don't use it, is just a waste. So, as always, use as much of it as you can. Okay, the bone's on the other side. So we're going to do that. And I mean, this is just exactly how quickly it goes. Crazy simple. Now, like ugly chicken, this is ugly pork. Ugly pork. And it is a staple at 99 cents a pound when you can find it for that price. Typically, I want to say in the spring and in the fall is when it goes on sale for that. So I have time to make room for all of my blueberries in a couple weeks, because I not only need to flash freeze them, but then put them into separated bags. And we will eat those blueberries all winter long. And it just brings you a little bit of summer on those cold winter days, you know. We love adding frozen blueberries to our yogurt. Oh, it's so good. It's kind of like having ice cream without ice cream. Okay, so we have pork butt. And if it's just, you know, you trim it the way that you feel works best for you, but it's not something that I suggest over worrying a lot. But there are some pieces where you look at it and go, yeah, that's not needed, because there's already so much marbling in the meat. So when this is done, it will be fully cooked in the jar, and it's just then a matter of determining what you're going to use it for. And there's just so many things that you can use it for. It makes super quick dinners. If you do chicken pot pie, try pork pot pie. It's really good. It's just as good. And you will love the fact that you don't have to go through all that trouble and all that time in order to defrost it, you know. And it's there, it's ready on your shelf. I put together a dinner for a group, and it was a group of about 40 people. And all I had to do is pull out a few quart jars of my canned pork and heat it up, put in some taco seasoning, and poof, we had pork tacos. I did another one where I did pulled pork, and it was barbecued pulled pork, and I did that by opening up a few jars and heating it up with the barbecue sauce. And it was a hit. Yeah, that was a crazy hit. So I will be doing that again. That's kind of a regular rotation in our house. Now there is a lot of fat mixed in with this, but there's also a lot of meat. So you just have to pick and choose. Now with I forgot to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I'm going to have a couple extra jars. I'm going to have to run an extra canner load, so I will put in some jars with water just for stability purposes and to not waste the energy, you know? That way I've got some canned water in case of an emergency. It's good for medical purposes. It's good for drinking purposes. It's shelf stable. All you got to do is aerate it when you open it. There are some people that go to the extent of pressure canning a very, very clean white washcloth in with their water jars, because that way it's right there and available in case of an emergency. I haven't gotten quite that far yet, but I've heard it mentioned quite a few times as an option, you know? So this has been no real editing, taking you guys right along. It's taking literally just minutes to carve this up. Of course, a sharp knife matters. You guys know I love this knife. And we've got a lot of new people joining us who are saying, where did you get that knife? The link is always in the description box below because I love this knife. I have been using it for years now and intend to continue using it for years. And I also get a lot of questions about how do you sharpen it. I just use the Rada, R-A-D-A sharpener for it. Works like a dream. Run it through there, depending on how often you do it, anywhere from, 25 to 50 times. And you end up with a super sharp, and I'm not kidding you, super sharp knife. So you want to be careful. And the reason you're not getting a whole bunch of camera angles is because this one woman show has porky hands. And I can't mess with the camera. So, again, I'm going to try to get a bunch of this off of the bone, but I'm also not going to over worry it a whole bunch, but I do want to get that last little bit into that jar over there, and then we'll be able to start putting it in. Can you add water to it? I guess you can because they let you do it with chicken, but again, I say it's kind of a waste, okay? It's absolutely unnecessary. This, when it cans, will create liquid, just like when you cook meat. It's the liquid that's in the jar when you're done canning it will be what came out of the meat. Just like when you put meat into a frying pan or something like that, that is what will happen. So it is never, ever, ever meant to cover the contents of the jar. That is not its intended purpose. You want to get it to an inch headspace, which is right at underneath that first rim. That's an inch headspace. Do you have to use a canning funnel? Absolutely not, because it's raw meat. No matter what you do, you're still going to get it on the rims. You're still going to have to wash off the rims, which is what we're going to do next after I wash my hands, because it's just the way that it works. So a canning funnel is not necessary with this. A canning funnel works with something that's small, like ground beef or ground sausage or things that are liquid. But with raw packed meat, totally unnecessary. And get in there. There we go. Here we go. We're going to see, I think I can get 7 of these in my canner. So we're going to do that right after I clean this up. I got a clean towel because, pork juice is not something to mess around with, just like raw chicken juice is not something to mess around with. So I put that towel into the washer and got a new one. But now I'm going to take vinegar. Why do I use vinegar instead of water? When I'm doing anything with pork, it's because it's a fatty meat, and so I want to make sure to get that fat off the rim. Okay, and even if you use a funnel, you're still going to end up with some fat on the rim. It's just the nature of the beast. And this also gives us a second chance to run our fingers with the addition of a paper towel over the rims to make sure that there are no cracks or chips or anything like that. Is it always effective? No, it is not. I proved that the other day with chicken, right? But it is more effective than not. Unfortunately, like I said, I think this canner only holds, my canner only holds 7 of these, which means I've got an extra one. And I'll have to put one in the fridge. Okay, now we're going to put the lids on. Fa la la. And as always, I'm using 4 Jars lids. Best lids on the market today. They are appropriate in price. They are high quality. They are not overcharging us by any extent. And I almost never have fails unless it's something that I miss, like a chip or a crack, or I don't get the headspace right or something like that. That's literally the only time I have a failure. They work fantastic. They are a great bunch of people. If you've been with me for any amount of time at all, you know I love me some 4 Jars. If you want to stock up on your lids and stuff, I highly recommend it because we have no idea what tomorrow brings, right? And so it's better to be safe than sorry, in my opinion. I literally have quite a few hundred lids. Yes, because they're important. They are part of my preparedness, definitely. Now we're going to put the rings on, and I want to take this time again for anybody that might be new to tell you about finger tight. So you're going to put that ring on, and you're going to turn it 2 fingers until it stops moving. That's it. That is finger tight, my friends. If you go any tighter, then what will happen is it does not allow the air to vacate the jar during the canning process. So if it's just on there finger tight, it gives it just enough leeway while still holding it in place to vent any excess air out of the jars. And that's what we want it to do. That ensures that it is safe. And that is the whole reason we go through all of this, is to make sure that we have shelf-stable food that is safe and nutritious. Do your rings have any kind of rust or tarnish or anything else on them? That's fine. Not a big deal. You can still use them as long as they go on the jar and work. They're good. It's not an engagement ring. It is a tool. Always remember that, okay? If you have a hammer that is never ever used, it's going to look sparkly and beautiful. And it means that you've never used it, which means that it's kind of taking up space, right? But if you have canning rings that don't necessarily look their super sparkly best, that's okay. As long as they go on and they work, they're good to go. It is a tool, not an engagement ring. We're not getting married. I love you, but we're not getting married. Let's talk about the canner while we're loading it. This is my 4 jars canner. I love it. Out of all of the canners, I recommend either a 4 jars canner or a Presto, because I don't think everybody needs a Cadillac to can, right? I very rarely have to change out my gaskets, like years, okay? And I have been using this thing for well over a year. I want to say almost 2 now, and have never needed to change out the gasket. We put 3 inches of water into the canner, period. 3 inches of water, okay? You don't want to go too high, because then it changes the math during the canning process, and you definitely don't want to go less, because if you run out of water and you run your canner dry, you risk ruining the canner and turning it into a doorstop. And I don't know about you, but I am never going to pay that much for a doorstop, okay? So treat your tools with a little bit of respect, and they will last you a very long time and require very little maintenance. Again, this is available, I believe, on their website. They just had a sale, so I'm hoping it's still available. But if you use the code Suttons10 while you're shopping, oh, it takes 8. It takes 8 pint-and-a-half jars. Yay, my math. Okay. If you use the code Suttons10 while you're on the 4 Jars website, you get 10% off anything. And you can stack that coupon on top of any sales that they might have going on. So that is something to pay attention to. Now, that pork butt was cold in that it came out of the refrigerator. It wasn't frozen, but it was cold, okay? And it went into jars that were room temperature for a 78-degree air-conditioned home. They went into water in the canner that is lukewarm to cold, because if I had super hot water in there, it could cause thermal shock, at which point not only do you lose the jar, but you lose the food inside the jar. Again, that's not why we're doing this. So if you put cold contents into a, quote, cold jar, it goes into cold water. If you put hot contents into a jar, it goes into hot water. Again, thermal shock. So that's just the standard rule. Now we're going to take our lid and we're going to put it on. There's like literally only one way to do it, so you cannot mess it up, okay? So you're going to line it up, and then you're going to twist that, and it will only go so far with the way that they've got this set with the handles. Now we are going to turn on the heat, and we are going to get this heating up, and when it builds up, it will start venting a steady stream of steam. Once that steady stream of steam begins, then you set your timer for 10 minutes, because the same thing happens with the canner as happens with the jars. It needs to vent the excess air out of the canner. This is technically steam fueled, you know, so that's how it builds up the pressure. So you're going to vent the excess air out of the canner. That's again why the level of water in the canner is so important. And we're going to let it vent for 10 minutes. Then we'll be back and show you how we do the regulator. We have a steady stream of steam, and we have it that way because we can see it and we can hear it. If you can hear it, but not see it, the best trick that I have is to take an old canning lid, hold it over, be careful because it's hot, okay? And you'll be able to tell that it's coming out. You're going to let that vent like that for 10 minutes, which is what we have done. Now we're going to add on the regulator. With the 4 jars pressure canner, it has a weighted regulator. And so we have, for my altitude, the 1 ring on the weight. If you have a gauge, then you're going to put on your regulator and wait for the gauge to get up to whatever pressure you need for your elevation, okay? So I am just below 1,000 feet. I only need 10 pounds of pressure, or 11 if you're using the gauge. Check the National Center for Home Food Preservation, link will be down below, that will tell you what pressure you need for your altitude. Now that, when it starts doing a nice little hula dance, is when we will start our timer, because that's when it will come up to pressure. Don't start it now. You want it to start it when it hits the pressure that it's supposed to be at. We're going to can it for 90 minutes because it is 1.5 pints, so we time it for the same amount as quarts. 90 minutes for whatever elevation you are at. And we'll check them out when they come out of the canner. That's my favorite part. There we have our hula dance. If it starts going faster than that, we need to adjust the temperature on our stovetop so that it doesn't go faster than that, okay? So we'll be back when we pull them out. The canner went through the whole 90 minutes, completely depressurized on its own. I let it sit for a few minutes. I took the regulator off after it depressurized, let it sit for a few more minutes, and now we are going to open the lid. Always open the lid away from you because it's hot and steam hurts, okay? And now we are going to pull this out and see how they're doing. Oh yeah, there we go. So that is our canned pork butt. Okay. And you may notice the rings are a little loose. That's normal. That's normal. It means they were working in there. Don't do anything to them. Don't mess with them. Just pull them out, let them do their due. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to let all of them sit until tomorrow morning. So you don't want to mess with them at all for at least 8 hours. And I know you want to watch them and you want to make sure those lids go down and all that other stuff, but I'm telling you, don't mess with them, okay? Just leave them alone for at least 8 hours. They are good for up to 24. And then after that 8 hours, if they have not set, then it's likely that they won't, you know? But before that, don't touch them. So there they are, a bubbling and a troubling. Now the fat will do things like this, okay? It still melts because fat melts. That's what fat does. It still melts, but that's like a combination of the fat and the meat and everything else. So that's normally what people don't like about raw packed meat, is that it's a little more challenging to clean. It means that when you empty the jar, you immediately fill it with water to let it soak. Get yourself a good bottle brush and you are good to go. So we'll see you in the morning so that you can see what they look like after they've cooled down. It is the next morning, and we have let these sit, didn't touch them overnight, and they all sealed. So we go through, and none of them have that hollow sound to them. They're all definitely down. Life is good. Now, I can say with the utmost certainty that out of all of the ugly meats, I think ugly pork is the ugliest. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, what you will notice, and what I wanted to bring attention to, is the fat. So pork butt is a fatty meat. That's just the nature of the meat. And that is the fat that cooked down when you cooked down and canned the pork. Now, that is deceiving. You look at, look at that one. That looks like it's a really big amount of fat, right? And it's not. What it is it pushes it all to the side. Unfortunately, the lids are not, see-through, but That's all pushed up against the side. So it's not as much as you think it is. It's not as much as it appears to be. And the liquid is underneath the fat, which is kind of cool. And the pork is above because, as I stated, the liquid is never meant to cover the meat. That is not necessary when you're doing raw pack meat. It is the liquid that naturally comes out of the meat when it cooks. And it's a beautiful thing. You can use it to make gravies. You can add it to your soups and stews. You can put it on the pup's food, you know, whatever the case. But it is not part of being safe or unsafe if you canned it properly per the National Center for Home Food Preservation raw meat, okay? And that is all good. And yeah, it is truly ugly. It really is. Now, if you have any questions, be sure to throw them down in the comment section down below. I hope this helps you, and I hope that you put up some ugly pork this season when it goes on sale. Until next time, everybody, be safe. Keep stacking it to the rafters, my friends.